Hello everyone, my name is Jimmy. Welcome to The Last Lap. In today's video, we're going to be breaking down everything we saw from Phoenix Raceway this past weekend. But before we hop into the video, just want to remind you guys to hit that like button and subscribe button. We greatly appreciate it if you did that. And you can also check out our social media pages. Those will be linked down in the description as always. But let's go ahead and hop into the video. As always, I have my friend and co-host Matthew joining me on the show. And Matthew, this was the first race with the quote-unquote new package this weekend for the Cup Series. So what are your quick takes and reactions before we take a deep dive into what we saw this whole weekend?
Well, from what I've seen with this new package, you could definitely pass with this new package. Unfortunately, it debuted at a track where you cannot pass at all, so it's unfortunate that we had to debut this package at Phoenix. So,
Yeah, we'll talk about, or I'll share more my reactions about the package later on. But let's go ahead and talk about the Cup race. I didn't watch the Xfinity race. I know Sammy Smith won. That's pretty much all I know. But Matthew, if you want to add on to that, you can. But before the race even started, the Hendrick cars, their hood louvers, I believe they were taken by NASCAR. They saw something they didn't like, so they had to replace those. Um, so any kind of announcement on any type of penalties that'll come out later in the week, and we'll update you guys, obviously, if anything does come of it. But Kyle Larson started on the pole. He seemed to be the favorite based off of practice and qualifying. Looked like he had a good car for the short run, and then his like 10, 15, 20 lap averages were up there, the highest, the top of the charts for all those different things. So he started on the pole, led the first lap, and then his teammate William Byron took the lead away from him on lap two. He would go on to win the first stage, William Byron would. No caution. I think it was just 60 laps, so it was just one green flag run for the first stage. And after this first stage, I was kind of like, is this deja vu from last week? Because William Byron took the lead from Kyle Larson early. The two of them pulled away from the rest of the field. I was like, oh boy, here we go again. This is Las Vegas 2.0. But after that was the first stage, William Byron ended up taking the win for that. There were a lot of penalties after those pit stops. Kyle Busch, Michael McDowell, Eric Jones, and Austin Cindric were all busted for speeding. And then Kyle Busch also had an uncontrolled tire during the. Actually, sorry, that wasn't during the caution. That was in the middle of stage two during green flag stops. My fault. But those four drivers were busted for speeding. Kyle Busch had a loose wheel. Those all during green flag stops in stage two. Um, then there was a caution in stage two for Eric Almirola. The wheel hub came off, or the nut came off, and he smacked the wall. He would get a 2-lap penalty for that. That is part of the new rule, where if the wheel comes off on the track, it's a 2-lap penalty. So that was the first we saw of that, I believe, this year. Alex Bowman, he had a pretty crazy save in turns 1 and 2. Looked like he channeled his inner Tokyo drift. That car was wicked sideways, and it was just a pretty cool save. So I just wanted to throw that in there. It was a little bit exciting. But Kyle Larson and William Byron, they would go 1-2 in the second stage. It seemed like once Kyle Larson got in front of Byron, he could pull away. Pretty much, honestly, the same thing as last week at Vegas. So they finished 1-2. Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski, they were, at the time, they were still kind of off compared to the two Hendrick cars, but they were consistently in the top five, so it was great to see some Fords up there after they struggled last week in Vegas. Mike Joy, he said something very funny. I guess I'll get to that after I go over the recap here. I'll quote it and read it to you guys after the fact. But Kyle Larson, he would lead Kevin Harvick after green flag pit stops, just barely. Kevin Harvick eventually closed the gap throughout the whole third stage, and by the time they finished green flag stops, Kevin Harvick was pretty much right on Kyle Larson's bumper. Didn't take Harvick too long to get by Kyle Larson. Seemed like as the race went on, Kevin Harvick's car got better. Kyle Larson's got a little bit worse. Harvick's car seemed to be better on the longer run. Larson's car seemed to be a bit better on the shorter run. So Harvick passed him for the lead William Byron, he ended up dropping back to fourth place behind Christopher Bell. His car started to fade as well throughout the day. And then, just like last week, a caution came out late in the race. 10 laps to go. Harrison Burton spun off of turn number 4. And then this allowed for some pit strategy, just like last week at Las Vegas. So Kyle Larson, William Byron, and several others took 2 tires. Kevin Harvick took 4. So Larson and Byron were on the front row. Kevin Harvick all the way back to 7th on after that pit stop. And then there was a caution on that restart for, I guess the meme on Twitter was for the big 3 in Xfinity last year. Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger, and Noah Gragson were all involved in an accident on that restart, so that set up an overtime restart. Kevin Harvick didn't really make up any ground, so Larson and Byron were on the front row. And then William Byron, he was able to take the lead from Kyle Larson on the outside. Seemed like Larson just couldn't get a good launch on the restart. William Byron, and then they were side by side in turn 1. Larson kind of washed up the hill, and Byron was able to hold in the throttle enough to get a run on the outside and pass Kyle Larson. And he got a really big push from Tyler Reddick as well down the backstretch. And William Byron was able to drive away and hang on and get his second win in a row. Won last week at Vegas, won this week at Phoenix. 2 in a row for William Byron. Let me quickly go over the race results, and then I'll go over my post-race thoughts. So, William Byron, P1. Ryan Blaney, second. Ryan Blaney, he was like in the latter part of the top 10 most of the day. Climbed up to second after those cautions and restarts and strategy and stuff. Tyler Reddick, third. He was pretty much like in 5th place all day. Good run for him after having a terrible start to the season. P3 for Tyler Reddick. Kyle Larson, 4th. Kevin Harvick, 5th. Arguably the 2 best cars of the day. Finished P4 and P5. Christopher Bell, 6th. Briscoe, 7th. Great run for him because earlier in the race he was where he usually is, like in the 20s, but they made some adjustments to his car, got him up into the top 10. Great run for him. Kyle Busch bounces back to 8th place after his speeding penalty and uncontrolled tire. And then we got 2 Hendrick cars, Alex Bowman and Josh Berry finishing 10th. And then some notable finishers I wrote down as well. Brad Keselowski finished 18th. Definitely not where he deserved to finish. He was in the top 10 all day long. Arguably even top 5 he deserved to finish. So tough break for Brad there. He was on the short end of the stick on a lot of those restarts. And then Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain got into it once again. Denny Hamlin kind of roughed Ross Chastain up in turns 1 and 2, and they both fell back all the way to 23rd and 24th. So very interesting to see what Denny Hamlin says on his podcast, Action is Detrimental, because I do listen to that podcast. So very interesting to see what Denny Hamlin will have to say about all of that. But as we move on, my post-race thoughts, I wrote down a Hendrick domination with a question mark, because it seemed like the first 2 stages of this race, it was going to be the same thing as last week. William Byron and Kyle Larson, a battle between the 2 of them. Then Kevin Harvick kind of showed up and seemed he had the better long-run car, so he was able to take the lead, and looked like Kevin Harvick is going to walk away with this race. So that's why I put a question mark next to Hendrick domination, because they didn't lead as many laps as they did last week, and Kevin Harvick kind of snuck in there and almost ruined the party for him. But all 4 Hendrick cars did finish inside the top 10. Great finish for Josh Berry, filling in for Chase Elliott. Just his second start in the next-gen car, but great run for him. Kevin Harvick continues to carry Stewart-Haas Racing on his back. Chase Briscoe did show up in the top 10 late in the race, which is good. But Chase Briscoe, he just needs to have that fire-off speed a lot earlier in the race. Like, he can't, every week he can't just be in the 20s and then adjust the car and eventually get his way into the top 10. That isn't going to work every week. So Kevin Harvick continues to carry Stewart-Haas Racing on his back. RFK, they seem to be back, not back to, like the Kurt Busch and Greg Biffle, Carl Edwards days when they were dominating and winning a bunch of races, but it seems like they're back to their competitive. So, like I said, Brad Keselowski ran in the top 5 pretty much all day long. just wrong place, wrong time with those restarts at the end. But I'm glad to see RFK seems to have a decent amount of speed moving forward. Hopefully, one or both of those cars can find victory lane this season. And then obviously, this was the first race with the new package. It was supposed to allow for 30% less downforce for the drivers to kind of be harder to drive the cars. And so this is the first race, so we kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. I know it wasn't the best racing out there. There weren't too many cautions, but the cars were slipping and sliding around the track. There were multiple grooves. Like I said, Alex Bowman almost spun the car out. You could run the top and the bottom in turns 1 and 2 and turns 3 and 4. So better than the Phoenix we had in the past where they put the resin or PJ1 down and it was just one groove around the whole racetrack. So you could move the car around. I feel like the package worked, but the drivers and the equipment are too equal. I feel like the next gen car really evened the playing field, so that didn't really allow for guys to just like drive their way through the field, and I feel like that's why it was kind of hard to pass. Plus, Phoenix has it hasn't always been the best short track, I guess. So I feel like we're gonna need to see this package at Richmond and Martinsville to have a true understanding of if this package works. So that's just my quick thoughts about the package in general, and then the race obviously too. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Matthew, what do you have to say about what you saw from Phoenix?
Alright, so first and foremost, I think Dirty Mo Media is going to be getting a lot of money this week, all the new episode after what happened on the last restart there. Um, so I'll be looking forward to see what Denny has to say about that. But anyways, here's my thing. I just don't understand why Phoenix is the championship race. I don't understand why it even has 2 dates. Look, I understand that it has the new looking facility like it does at Daytona, and trust me, Daytona has an amazing facility, and so does Phoenix from hearing other people that have been to that track before, and so I understand why, but the racing product, it doesn't matter the car, it's just not good at Phoenix. Even though you can run the top and the bottom lane, it's just so hard to pass. So, like I said, I can see passes happening with this new package. I saw it today, but unfortunately, it's at a track where it is very hard to pass. So, I'll be looking forward to see the real test of this package when we get to a road course and also Martinsville. So, yeah. I feel like the package it sort of worked, but I mean it's at Phoenix, so it's just kind of hard to tell if it really worked. So that's my thoughts on that. Other than that, it was basically like Las Vegas 2.0, except Kevin Harvick showing up late. And man, that would have been great for. I feel so bad for Kevin Harvick there because, of course, it's his final season. This is the track where he's had his best track basically with 9 wins, I believe. Yeah, 9 wins. 20 consecutive top tens, like they kept mentioning like a million times on Fox today. But man, I feel bad for him because he definitely had it right there until uh, the guy that's under his management, Harrison Burton, spins out on his own. So I mean that's a painful way to lose a race right there. And I also feel bad for Kyle Larson as well because this is 2 weeks in a row where he had the best dominant car the whole race and couldn't close it out, either because of a restart or strategy. And I mean, that's 2 races in a row. Kyle Larson definitely has the speed. It's just they haven't been able to close it out. So hopefully they can get that together. As for William Byron, 2 races in a row now that he's won. And I mean, I hope this continues on because we've seen this story before where he's had a lot of success in the first half and then the second half of the seasons when he disappears. So I hope, I hope William Byron is able to have a more consistent season this time. I mean, so far it's looking promising, back-to-back wins, but I'm hoping the real test will be how does he do during the summertime and the playoffs. So, I mean, if he can keep it up, then I think William Byron could be a championship contender this year. So, keep my eye on him. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, like I said, nothing much happened this race because I mean, it's Phoenix. It's just not really a spectacular track, in my opinion. They need. I saw someone on Twitter. They were talking about, hey, let's just put the grass back again, or something like that. I mean, maybe it'll help with the restarts, be more tight, I guess, instead of being so spread out. I don't know, but that track needs a fixing. They fixed the grandstand part, which looks very nice, like Daytona. But the what's on the track, they need to fix that like pronto because, in my opinion, the championship race does not need to be at Phoenix. I mean, we don't need the championship race to be boring. We don't need it to be dull. We want it to be exciting. So that's my thoughts on it. I mean, other than that, it was that typical Phoenix race. I feel like the new package worked. Like I saw passing compared to last year, but unfortunately, it's at a track that is very hard to pass. So it's hard to judge from this race. I'll be looking forward to see how it does at Coda with the first road course race, and also at Martinsville, Richmond, because that'll be the real test right there. So other than that, congrats to William Byron, 2 weeks in a row. Um, And somehow Kyle Busch was able to get a top 10 even after having a subpar car again for a second week in a row. That's concerning, in my opinion. We don't need subpar performances. We need what we had all the clubs. So, but it's still top 10, so I'll take it. Um, yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing about William Byron, but you beat me to it. Last year, William Byron won at Atlanta and Martinsville, which are actually after these two races in a row that he just won. So yeah, last year and in previous years, he's been known to be pretty consistent. The first third of the year ish, and then as soon as the summer months hit, he tends to start fading. And then in the playoffs, he they start to gain momentum, but they don't get back to where they were at the beginning of the season. I feel like so. I'm hoping William Byron stays consistent throughout the summer months. I'm not saying he has to win at all during the summer, but I'd like to see him consistently in the top five and top 10 in contention for wins. But yeah,
In
that's
my
gonna be interesting
opinion,
to
I think he
see.
does need a. In my opinion, I think he does need a win this summertime because that's where we start seeing the downpour. We need to see him winning at during like Pocono or Nashville, wherever the races are in the summertime. If we want to take him seriously as a championship contender this time.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, look at last year. Logano, he won at Gateway. I mean, he won at Darlington and then he won at Gateway, which is, I guess, in the middle of the summer, and then didn't really win any more until basically the playoffs started.
But
So I'm not
Logano
saying you
was
have
way
to.
more consistent than Byron was, in my opinion, from what I've seen.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
was running way better than he was Byron.
Well, yeah, I know that. Just I'm not saying like Byron just has to go out there and win 10 races like Kyle Larson did in 2021. Maybe win a race, in the middle of the year, but just consistently see top fives, top 10, stuff like that. So I'm rooting for him. I hope William Byron does well. But let's go ahead and rate this race before we get on out of here. For me, I think I gave Las Vegas a 6 last week. So, man, I don't know. Do I give this the same rating as Vegas? Uh, I'll go up just a tiny bit. I think I said 6 last week. If I didn't, sorry. I'm just gonna give it like half a point better than last week. I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. I The restarts are always crazy, at Phoenix. You see them spread out 5, 6 wide on the front stretch, and then they go all the way to the bottom of the racetrack in turns 1 and 2. Um, Kevin Harvick, he mixed it up with the Hendrick cars, made it look like he was going to win the race. He had a good car, so it wasn't just a two-car show for the whole race. Kevin Harvick made things interesting. Caution comes out, strategy, 2 tires, 4 tires, all that kind of stuff. Pretty good restart at the end, good finish, 6.5 out of 10 for me. Matthew, what are you going to rate this race?
I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. I believe Las Vegas was better than what I saw today. Even though the package, I feel like you can pass, but it's Phoenix. It's just a track that's just so hard to pass. And I mean, the racing in Phoenix is just not good in general. So I gotta give it a 5.
Ouch. That's more rough than my rating of Vegas last week. We kind of flipped. Last week I was the harsh one, you were the generous one. This week I'm the generous one. This week you're the harsh one. So that's just why we love doing these videos, because you get two perspectives and two opinions on stuff. But let's quickly go over the fantasy update before we get on out of here. This week, you ended up third out of 10 people in our league for the race. You got 258 points. I was right behind you in fourth at 240. And as for overall total throughout the season so far, you're still in first at 859. I am in sixth with 691, so still behind you. Thankfully, I had a decent week this week. I unfortunately forgot to do the matchups, which is 10 points each for one you get right. And I think I would have picked all 4 of them, so that's 40 points I missed out on this week. But oh well, I'll go get them next week, I guess. But as for closing thoughts, I am gonna just quickly say what Mike Joy said on the live broadcast. Somebody thankfully tweeted it and quoted it for me, so I can just read it off of here. But Mike Joy said, "Quote: To all the keyboard warriors, the last full-screen green flag commercial of today comes right now." End quote. So I think Mike Joy has been on Twitter maybe just a little bit too much. Just based on I swear he's been doing this every race since Daytona. He's been throwing like little jabs out there, like, okay, this is the final, you know, full commercial under green flag run, or this is the final side by side commercial for the race, or the final caution full commercial. Like every race since Daytona, it seems like he's doing this, and I see him on Twitter like every week, just constantly talking to people about the commercials and the broadcast and all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was kind of funny. But Matthew, what do you have to say to go ahead and wrap this video up?
That was absolutely hilarious of Mike Joy. I'm happy that he did that. But in all seriousness, no, I feel bad for Mike Joy because he's the voice on TV. He's just doing what he has to be told. And of course, you got those idiots that we unfortunately have to call NASCAR fans these days. They always He's got to deal with those fools every day about the commercials and crap. And yes, we don't like the commercials. I explained that before. I don't. But I mean, Mike Joyce is being told what he has to do. I mean, these idiots here don't know how TV and marketing works. So I mean, I feel bad for Mike Joy. I mean, I understand, his frustrations. Like he's doing what he has to do. I mean, there's nothing he can do about it. So, I mean, props to him though for saying that, because I would have said the same thing if I was in his shoes, in my opinion. Actually, I would have been more harsh, but hey, that's classic Mike Joy right there. So proud of you.
Alright, well, that's going to go ahead and wrap this video up. We hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts about the race down in the comment section down below. Let us know about what you thought about the package. Let us know what you think about William Byron, if he's peaking too soon, if you think he's going to have a good year this year, a more consistent year this year. Let us know your thoughts, and make sure you guys check out our social media pages. They'll be linked down in the description as always. But until the next time, we will see you guys in our next video.